Welcome to another episode of Conversations with Coach Law. It is your favorite around the way therapist. I'm live in the Urban Heat studio on Super Bowl night. So, it was very, very exciting and very lit in the studio tonight. We are impacting communities around the globe and in the communities we serve. And if you know, like I know, what I need you to do is to go on the iHeartRadio app and to download it and to follow the Urban Heat so that you can listen through the app. You can also check us out on our website, www.heat98.1 heat981fm.com. I always want to put the point in there. It's just a habit, you guys. So tonight's show is, as you know, every second Sunday of the month, we have conversations with men, primarily men of color, about self care and men's mental health. So tonight's show is very special to me because we have a special guest who is a native of Boston, Massachusetts, and he serves as a dean of students and as a member of school leadership at Newton North High School. He also used to work at Cristo Boston High School, and he was the dean of student support. And prior to that, he worked at College Brown Boston as a college English teacher. He's also worked at Bunker Hill Community College as the director of athletics and fitness programs and MassBay Community College. When I tell you this man has been all over Boston serving all of our athletes, it's just amazing the work that he's done. And at the MassBay Community College, he was the associate director of athletics and recreation and wellness. He also was at Cathedral High School in Boston, and he served as the director of athletics there as well. One of his biggest accomplishments is that 98% of his students that he served were able to have a 98% college acceptance rate. And I think that is extremely exciting and important. But a lot of his work right now is about the social and emotional wellness of athletes and also around coaches. So I am looking forward to talking to him. Without further ado, can you please welcome Mr. Khari Roulhac to Conversations with Coach La? How you doing, Mr. Khari?
I am well. I'm well. I'm excited to be here. Thank you for having me. I'm very excited to outreach to your community. I know you've been doing a lot of work in the community, especially with the pole therapy that's coming up. I'm looking forward to. But I'm excited to be here. And thank you for having me.
Absolutely. You've actually had the opportunities to be a part of pole therapy too. I'm on pole therapy 3 now. So I was excited that you were able to participate in that. And so far, I think you're coming to pole therapy 3 too, right?
This is the plan. That is the plan. The
That is
plan
the
is to be
plan.
there.
That is
Absolutely.
the plan. So, Kari, I'm really excited to have you come on tonight's show because I decided maybe maybe about I would say a couple months back to dedicate my show at least once a month to men of color, in celebration of my father's life. As you know, about 4 years ago, he passed away. I'm not sure why I'm having that echo, but let me
That might be mine.
turn it down
Let
and turn it
me
down.
fix that.
So about 4 years ago, my dad passed away from organ failure. And it really got me thinking about how, especially Black men, take care of themselves and being able to sort of have conversations around not just mental health, but just your overall physical health and taking care of your home life and also taking care of your body. And what better way to do that than to talk to men themselves? That's so you can inspire other men to do the same thing. So, my first question, and we talked about this, was what does therapy mean to you? And we talked a little bit about that offline, but you do a lot of work with recommending students to attend therapy, families to get therapy. So why is that important to you and what does it mean to you?
Well, just in my work and working with youth, you mentioned earlier that I started working at Cathedral High School, and of course, I did some work at MassBay Community College in Bunker Hill, where a lot of students go when they go there, they're going for a second chance, and so throughout the sum total of my experience has been, involved with recommending students for different resources, and counseling being one of them. And so it's something that I've always kind of dabbled with in my own and talking with students and kind of gathering what their needs are. And then my own personal experience as a professional and as an adult, in my own experience with counseling. I see it as a necessary aspect of growth, But it's not something. It's not how I've always seen it. So I'm excited to be in this new stage of my life where I have the opportunity to really explore counseling and figure some things out.
Absolutely. One of the things I love about talking about the concept of therapy, because you're a coach and you deal with injuries and everything else. And I put the definition of what therapy is. If one of your athletes was to hurt themselves in a game, their knee, their Achilles heel or whatever, they go to therapy, right? Physical therapy.
Absolutely.
Um, and we don't even think twice about it, right? Like, but when it's dealing with our emotions, we often shy away from how to remedy those type of things. But therapy in general, it we do it all the time. We just don't necessarily frame it in the same way when it's to talk to a counselor. We immediately say, "Oh, you must have a disease or disorder, or you must be crazy. Something's wrong with you." But sometimes it's just maintenance, right? It's more therapeutic than anything else.
A lot of times when I'm talking to young people, I'm talking about transferable skills, and the transferable skills I'm talking about are things like hard work and focus, and asking them to use those skills and transfer them from the playing field to the classroom. And therapy is just another one of those things. One of those
Absolutely.
skills can be used and transferred in both realms. So absolutely.
So I have to kudo that, second that, because one of the things I looked up when I was like, okay, let me actually look up therapy. Like I know I generally have an understanding, but this particular definition really I think spoke to athletes. It's any act, hobby, task, or program that relieves tension. And I thought about often when we're working out,
Yeah,
especially with physical activity. Um, oh, that might be me. It went up a little bit again. When you go to the gym or you have a good trainer and you're actually working on developing muscle, it's painful, right?
sure.
You're stretching it. Um, and we then after that have recovery time, right? Which can involve massages, icing, resting,
Absolutely.
keeping it lifted. So when you think about all of that, we naturally know we need to do that as an athlete, that we need to engage in some level of recovery and therapy. But we don't necessarily think about that in terms of our mental health. So yes, people need to go to therapy. Would you agree that because you told me recently that you actually tried therapy for yourself?
I did. I did. I consider myself an open book. So I'm recently going through a divorce, and through that process, I've reached out to therapy, just to make sure that I have my wits about me through the process. Is something that I've never thought I would go through, and as going through it for the first time, I wanted to make sure that I had somebody to bounce some things off of as a guide. And it's really my first time having a therapist as an adult. um,
Mhm.
I've talked the talk all my life with students and told them, pointed them in the right direction and recommended those things, but and dabble with it a little bit along the way. But this is really my first time delving into it, and it's been beneficial. Just to have a sounding board.
Mhm. I love that you use the term sounding board. So what do you think your biggest takeaway has been from sitting down with with a therapist?
Just being able to hold a mirror up to myself, and him repeating back to me what I said, and just hearing it back in a different way oftentimes, gives me some insight into how I want to how I want to move on whatever the issue is. So I would say just being able to hold up a mirror in front of myself and have somebody else help me navigate the way.
I love that you said that. We call that reflective listening. So when we mirror back what we hear you saying, it's one for clarity, but it also most people know what they want to do.
Sure.
The average person is in their head and already has sort of a way they want to move, or already has some ideas about what they want to do. And so having somebody repeat it back is often really helpful to you hearing your own thoughts,
Sure, that
right?
makes sense.
Yeah, right. So that is a excellent skill. Most therapists know that skill. We use that often. That's like as you guys would probably say, that's part of the playbook. That's part of
Sure.
the therapist playbook. Absolutely. And the other thing I had put up on the screen too is one of the most common reasons that people go and seek out therapy often is due to relationships. Um, though that's one of the top issues: confidence building, self-esteem, help
Absolutely.
with depression. But most importantly, a lot of times it's relationship issues. That tends to be, I would say, in my practice, one of the number one reasons that women, because 90% of my practice is women, come to therapy. They're either trying to better understand their partner, or they're trying to contemplate whether or not they want to stay or go.
Mm,
Or they recently had a breakup, or are going through a divorce. So very good reason. So
absolutely.
the other question, I know you saw Brown Sugar, one of my favorite movies, of course. She had a question, which was, when did you fall in love with hip hop? And so I created my own question like that, which is a bet on self. What is your bet on self moment? And I think I broke this down for you, but for all of the listeners, if this is your first time tuning into Conversations with Coach Law on the Urban Heat, I have a mantra, a lifestyle, and a mindset concept called bet on self, which my father used to always say, baby, bet on yourself. Whenever I started to feel discouraged or unsure of myself, he would always tell me that everything I needed was already inside of me. So, bet on self is all about those moments in your life where you decide to step out of your comfort zone, take control of your life, or realize that, yes, things may have not been your fault, but it is your responsibility to be the driver in your life and not the passenger. So, Mr. Khari, do you have any bet on self moments that you want to share with the listeners?
I would say I once read a book entitled "Between the World and Me." It was a powerful book. And after, so once reading the book, I saw myself in the book clearly, and I saw different powerful moments in the book that validated different experiences that I had. And I would say shortly after reading that book, I began to bet on myself, and I began to be more authentic. When I showed up to different places, to the workplace, and the different projects that I was involved with. Most recently, I'm working on a project with the Black Coaches Classic that I think I'm betting on myself with, and really tapping into resources that I hadn't before, and I'm excited about it. And it's a new opportunity, and it's an opportunity to bet on myself that I think I'm going to be successful with.
I'm glad you brought up, new projects and in general. And you mentioned a book. Can you say that one more time in case the listeners didn't hear what the name of that book was?
Between the World and Me.
Between the World and Me. I've never heard of that book. I'm gonna have to add that to my list of reads. What was it about that book that stood out to you that you made you step out your comfort zone?
Well, really, it told my story. Before reading the book, I was ashamed of the fact that I came from, the neighborhood that I came from, and would shy away from telling that story, and was ashamed of the fact that I, had some of the experiences that as a youth, that a lot of the experiences that come from my neighborhood have. And afraid to talk about those things. And after that book, having seen, that individual being able to
Oh, Marie, you having a bad connection. Hopefully Kari comes back, you guys. I'm not sure if he realizes that he is frozen, but we cannot hear him anymore. I hope you guys can hear me. Kari? All right, you guys are still tuned into the Urban Heat. I think we lost our guest. You know, this is live radio, real time, and you are listening to Conversations with Coach Law. I'm sure our guests will come back. And tonight's conversation is about mental health and men's mental health. And we are speaking with Boston native Khari Roulhac, and he is currently the Dean of Students at Newton North High School. And we are talking to him about his bet on self moments. And he just had a little bit of a technical difficulty, but we should be having him come back momentarily. Let me bring him back onto the stream. You're back.
Sorry about that. I don't know what happened.
Hey, it's called technology. It's called Wi-Fi.
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
you were telling us about the book you were reading.
Yeah, so the book was called Between the World and Me, and there were just instances in the book where he talked about his experience of growing up and being a young person and going to college and being a professional, and a lot of his experiences were similar to mine. And then after reading the book and after realizing that my experiences were valuable and the book validated my experiences, and then being able to use them to catapult myself to where I am today as a professional, was a bet on self moment for me.
So do you find that, when you said that those were parts of your life that you didn't really want to talk about, I kind of think about Will Smith talking about coming up in Philly and, you know,
Sure.
being poor and different things of that nature, and sort of that being the backstory. And sort of, even though you get so far away from it, it's still a big fear. Do you think that that's when you say, that that was something that you were embarrassed about? Like, how did that impact how you showed up in the world?
I mean, if you're back at that time, I thought of myself as a professional. Obviously, I went to school and I graduated and I was a professional, but I'm going home to the same neighborhood that I grew up in, and having the friends that are involved with things that nefarious things that might be frowned upon in these professional settings,
Hmm.
is a weight to carry to work with you, and also having experiences as a young person, you know, carrying those experiences is with you, into professional settings, is a weight when you think the people at those professional settings frown upon those experiences and frown upon people from those neighborhoods. And that was something to overcome for me.
Right. It makes me think about the concept of survivor's remorse, right? So I get a lot of male clients that have arrived, in the sense I use that very loosely. But when I say arrived, I mean they have went to college and sort of been able to overcome some of the adversities that we see in our inner city. One of the biggest things, and me and Khari go way back, is like, will you even make it to 18?
Right.
That's not everybody's, that's not the cloud over your head, right? And so the next one was, will you make it to your 30? Like, we had these milestones that if a black man made those things, that was like a big deal. Another one was just graduating out of high school, right? Like, will he finish high school? Those were like really big ones. And that's because there's such a large there's a prevalence of violence. So you could just be in the wrong place at the wrong time and something could happen. So
Absolutely.
so when you say in being in those different environments, have you thought about or processed with your own therapist, like the impact that that has on your mental health, to have this duality of personalities, right? Like, how you act with your homeboys is not how you act with your professional coworkers,
Right.
and having to kind of, I don't
Code
know, pivot those two worlds.
Yeah, that's that code switching. That's something that when I said I began to show up authentically, that's something that I made an effort to not do the code switching. But that's not something that I explore with my therapist. When I spoke with my therapist, I spoke exclusively about my marriage and about navigating the process of going through it and coming out of it, and establishing my footing and all that kind of stuff.
Right.
But that is something that is worth exploring. When you come up in a neighborhood and you see people get shot and stabbed, and see drugs being sold, you see prostitution and these things as norms.
Mhm.
um that's something that you should process, because those aren't norms
Yes.
for a young person growing up.
And so a little history, me and Khari went to high school together. Ha ha, Coach Law did go to high school, y'all. Like, I didn't just start here. And I think about the fact that we were going to a private parochial high school, but it was right next to the projects. We still had to go through urban community to get to our private school. A lot of people don't realize, the different things that we had to overcome. We still was going to parties that was, wild, and drug dealers and gangbangers and all of that stuff was still around us while we were cheerleaders and basketball players, right? So
Yeah, just getting to school was a chore. I
it's
had I had to walk through, 2 or 3 neighborhoods in order to get to school. There was a time where I carried a knife going to school, just for protection.
I had
So
a hammer.
Yeah, so it's a true story.
You know, I had a hammer. They said, well, they can't arrest you for having a hammer in your bag. So, you know, I carried a hammer and wearing a cap. Like I went to a Catholic school where I wore a uniform before I went to the school we went to together. So I was like definitely a mark. Like
Yeah,
there goes that little Catholic school girl
yeah,
with her uniform on,
that's
you know.
how it is.
Um, but you know, when I think about the code switching, that's really real. And I don't know that we always think about the impact that that has on our mental health, right? Which is I've been told from people that are in my circle I don't really fit in. I don't fit in my professional setting, and
Mm,
I don't really fit in with my people at home. Like I'm almost like a unicorn. Like I'm in this space in between, and it's not unless I talk to someone like you that gets it, that
right.
understands that space in between. Like you get it, but you're not really of either world.
Yeah, I felt that most when I was a student at Metco. So after our mission closed, you know, you went to Cathedral, and I went to, I think,
I did not. I went
where'd
to
you
mission
go?
with you.
No, after mission closed.
Oh, after mission closed, I went to another course to college. I went to
Okay.
a college prep school
I,
with EPS.
I don't know why I thought you went to Cathedral.
No, I didn't. I felt like Cathedral was still an enemy back then. Like
Okay,
I was like,
I
I'm not going
believe
to
it.
Cathedral.
I believe
That
it.
was like I wasn't going there.
That was the year after we beat him in the garden.
We beat them in the garden real bad, real
Right,
bad.
right.
That was one of my best performances as a cheerleader.
It was a lot of fun. A lot of
We
fun.
came in with the top hats and the leather coats to we're on a mission.
That's right.
Yes, yes.
That
They
was our
I think some
kickback.
people might still have that on video.
I hope so. I hope so. If you can find it,
Yeah,
share.
we
Share.
came in with the gangster lean.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay,
Um,
y'all are getting a little bit of history on Coach La. So, yes, I used to be a cheerleader. Used
but
to be
so,
very slim in my younger years.
she was a wonderful cheerleader. Wonderful
Thank you,
cheerleader.
thank you, thank you. And
So
you
after,
were an awesome basketball player
thank
too.
you very much. Thank you very much. I had my day. So after mission closed, I went to Concord Carlisle through the Metco system.
Okay,
And that was the first time that I really felt that duality and was really able to live, you know, coming home and people at home looking at me different, and you know,
right.
being out there and clearly, you know, not being, you know, one of them, and being looked at different, or at least feeling like I'm being looked at different. So that was the first time that I felt that real duality. And you know, as life progressed, obviously you go to college, you know, so you go in the professional world, and you recognize a lot of similarities.
Yeah, I mean, I think that year, that was our sophomore year that they closed down our school. And just a little bit of history, that was right around the time that they sued the archdiocese for all of those sexual abuse cases. I don't think I fully understood it in our sophomore year why our school was getting closed down. But now that I've gotten older, I realized that that was like part of what they had to do to be able to pay all of that, restitution back to those people that had got harmed by those priests. But that's a whole nother story, right? So they closed down our school in our sophomore year on a high of us just winning a championship. Like
Yeah.
we was like, yeah, we was the dope. We was like dope. We was feeling ourselves. And then they closed our school down and everybody had to kind of figure out where we would end up. So a lot of people went to MECO or went to other Catholic schools, and some people went back to public school, Boston Public
Yeah.
School. So um, I think that was, I think for me, one of the first times I had to like learn about pivoting and betting on myself because I had to advocate to go to another course to college. That was not like we had to kind of figure out where we was going to go. Our parents didn't know what to do. Like I don't know about you. Did you pick that school?
Yeah, we had talked about that a little bit,
Yeah.
in the pre-show as well. So I, you know, even to get to mission, you know, I had to advocate for myself. Before I got to mission, I was at Boston Tech. I had qualified for the exam schools. Went to Boston Tech, and Boston Tech wasn't really a basketball school at the time. It was doing its thing in the city. I think it had just gone to the city championship. Trudy Fisher was the first female coach in the city at the time, and she was the coach, and so that was exciting. But it was really a in-house a model with the city. And so I wanted to get out of the city. And Mission was right around the corner.
Mhm.
I had family at Mission. And so I went to my mother and I kind of advocated for myself to go to Mission. I went up there, got all the paperwork, brought it home, kind of made her sign it and dragged her up there. Is how I got to Mission. And I got to Meco the same way. I had a friend that was in Meco, and that's so I did all the legwork and figured out the paperwork and then dragged my mother up there in order to get into Meco. And so, there was a lot of advocating for myself. My mother was working 2 jobs, and she's a single parent, and that whole thing. So, in order to get things done, we had to advocate for ourselves.
I think that's part of. I think I'm a '70s baby, and therefore our parents were born in like the '50s. It was just a different time, and I think even what we've experienced being, I would say, more of the talented 10th. We've gone to college and did a lot of things that maybe a lot of our parents didn't even do,
Sure.
or our friends didn't even do. How are you now taking care of yourself? So like we make those big jumps, I bet on self moments. And like you said, this is your first time really seeking out therapy. So how have you been able to, because this show is all about men's mental health. How did you overcome all that adversity to make these choices that you've made to be successful?
Well, it's a journey, and I think of it all as a marathon and not a 50-yard dash. And at the point I'm at in my life right now, I'm starting over. So I really, have the opportunity to completely redesign, however I move forward. I'll be seeking a new place to live, right? And just a new platform to do different things. And so therapy is helping me to navigate that process. And like I said earlier, just working with someone who's able to put a mirror up to me and show me what I'm doing wrong, what I might be, what I might want to reconsider. um, but this stage of my life is all about rebuilding and figuring out which direction I want to go, and I'm utilizing therapy to help me do that.
My father used to say, you're never without needing a parent. And I don't know about you, when I grew up, 18 was like the marker where your parents was like, you're 18 and now you can go out and be in the world.
Yeah,
I can't even imagine, like my son is 17. I can't even imagine like letting him just think he could do it by himself at 18. But when we was coming up, it was just really, really different. And I think even that is some privilege that my son has that he may not even realize he has.
sure.
Right. But at 18, I was already living on my own, had my own apartment and just doing so many things. Um, I can't even see him being ready to do any of that. Right.
It's a completely different world.
It's such a different world. And as you talk about rebuilding and sort of being in this space now and thinking about what my father said, that you'll always need a parent. Often therapy reminds us that we have to reparent ourselves,
Mm,
right? Like the gaps. And that's not to say our parents didn't do what they did, the best that they could with the resources that they knew to do.
sure.
But then we get to these points in our life where we realize, similar to coaching, right? You could be a great athlete and still need a coach,
Absolutely.
right? You could be skilled, superbly skilled, and still need, guidance or a sounding board or someone to help honing in on your skills. I think therapy helps you to sort of figure that out, and it's a great tool, a great tool. So
I think that's an awesome way to look at it, and I never looked at it that way. And I have, come to the realization that our parents, were only able to give us so much. They could only do so much with what they had. And those of us who had a single parent, that's even, cut in half, even more so. And so therapy can be that coach, that person, that someone to bounce ideas off of and to get some guidance from. I like that idea, and I never thought about it that way.
that's awesome. I'm glad I can hope for the listeners. Again, you're tuned into the Urban Heat 98.1 FM. You're listening to Conversations with Coach Law. As you know, we debunk myths about therapy and mental health, that it's not just about severe mental health diagnosis. We can use it as a mirror, we use it as a sounding board, often it's about reparenting and healing and just having someone to sort of mirror back what you already want to do. So let's switch gears a little bit and talk about your organization. So I have it up on the screen, Roulhac Enterprises. And one of the things I think is so dope is you share a lot of different resources and events and different things all throughout the community. But what inspired you to start your organization?
Well, just as coming from the neighborhood and being a professional and getting exposed to different things for the first time, there was a point where jobs and different resources were coming across my desk, and they were coming across my desk at such a rapid pace. I couldn't do anything with them, and I figured there must be somebody in the community that can do something with these things. You become part of these different organizations, and privy to these different mailing lists, et cetera, et cetera. And so I just started sharing the things that I was being exposed to, and that's kind of how it started. And so I share resources about education. I share resources about job readiness, job improvement, mental health, any opportunity that a student, a youth, or a family might be looking for to improve themselves in any of those different areas of education, mental health, career development. You can find in my space. You can also I'm also, I did a COVID survey some time ago that I'm very proud of. When schools shut down, people were asking everyone else but students, what they thought of, the next steps and what they thought of the plans that were being offered publicly. And so I did a survey to students. At the time I had, 10, 15 plus years in school. I had access to students. And so I wanted to reach out to them to find out what they were thinking. And so I published a report. I did a survey and published the results and made that available to the Department of Public Health and the Boston Public Schools. One of the things that I did that I was very proud of most recently. I'm working now on the Black Coaches Classic, which I'm very, very proud of, that I'm happy to share with you about.
Yes, yes. So, Roulhac Enterprises, you guys can find it on Instagram. You can also check out his website. And it is designed to help create pathways to learning and opportunities about mental health and career development for people of color. It cognitively engaged individuals seeking enrichment. So I think you were mentioning, I want to make sure, was that the pandemic portal
So
project?
the pandemic portal project is something that I'm seeking funding for the summer, and essentially that's a program where we'll be doing, social media etiquette. A lot of people are talking about, are aware of social media, even adults are, and how prevalent it is in our society, and of course, our youth are involved with it, and we're aware of some of the dangers that can be involved with social media. And so I developed a program that I'm hoping to offer to the youth in the Boston and greater Boston area that deals with social media and, just navigates the pitfalls of social media. So that's a program that I'm seeking some funding for the summer. Hopefully I'll get that off the ground. And those anyone interested obviously can reach out to me at roulhac@gmail.com.
All right. So then you also have a project with ending abusive coaching, which I think is really, I think, interesting. And it's really about, it's a lot of legislation that you've also been championing. Can you talk to the listeners a little bit about that? Because I'm sure a lot of people have either experienced abusive coaching or may even know an abusive coach.
Sure. And abuse of coaching is essentially, as Coach La said, about ending the abuses that we see in the different coaching ranks, and essentially about the establishment of a curriculum that athletic programs would follow to make sure that all teams kind of being taught the same way. And so to promote that, or to make sure that we get that that legislation, that program heard, or that curriculum heard, we promoted the legislation. We got a couple senators, Senate Majority Crean and Khan are supporting a bill in legislation right now actively. So you guys can go to my website and go to endabusivecoaching.org to see the legislation and see how you can sign on. But essentially, in my 20 years as an athletic director, what I saw was different teams being getting different levels of attention for different reasons. You're a basketball team, you're hot, you're going to get a lot of attention. You're the tennis team, you might not see a lot of the light. Maybe you've got a coach that isn't, is rogue and isn't following the rules, and so we want to make sure that all coaches have the same kind of playbook, um, and establishing a safe and supportive environment being, chief among the things that we're asking coaches to do.
Mhm. So, would you say, because I know you've been playing sports for a long time, what has the impact of sports been on your life, both positively and negatively?
I would say it's been transformative. I mean, it's allowed me to be a good teammate, and that's something that transfers, to the workplace. It allows me to be able to be resilient, and I know how to lose with grace. It's given me connections to people that, lifelong friendships and things of that nature. So sports has been tremendously a tremendous part of my life, and has been transformative in my growth.
I have a son who's an athlete, and I will say that one of the things, since he's now in a more established team, that I've seen that camaraderie and just being connected to that has helped improve his mental health, I would say. And when I say that, I mean just his overall mood, disposition, sense of sense of confidence, purpose, is as he has something that is driving his efforts in school and
Yeah,
all of that, because he plays on the team. So I do think there's a lot of positives that comes out of sports. But
yeah,
some of the negatives, when you say abusive coaching, I think about, there was a study done on, two different players, and one player has a lot of talent,
mhm,
extremely talented young man, but the coach is so hard on him about simple mistakes that although he had all the talent, he doesn't make it, right? And it's the
yeah.
player who is mediocre but got very positive reinforcement and um, encouragement ends up surpassing that player with all of the skills because of how he was cultivated and how he was coached.
It's really simple. All of the science that we read says that you shouldn't scream at students, for example. And why do we allow coaches to yell at players? It's real simple when you break it down like that.
Wow. So, tonight's show is dedicated to men's mental health, and just overall when we think about the dynamics of how, men are socialized
Yeah,
sense. So there was a video earlier that someone posted about men are not necessarily encouraged to express their feelings or their emotions. How do you think that plays into some of the practices you see in coaching? And do you think there's a difference between female athletes and male athletes, or is it the same?
I think athletics are like its own animal. I think it's on its own island, and it has its own rules. And that's kind of why you see the abuses that you see. There's no one really governing, how athletes and how coaches, pardon me, coaching their teams, aside from the athletic directors who's responsible for, maybe a dozen teams. Um, so it's a completely different world. And so sports, AAU, these are rogue spaces, and parents and boosters and anyone with resources can get a team together and travel to Las Vegas. And so sports is a different world, and whereas the other spaces are governed, and so it's a completely different. It's apples and oranges.
Hmm. So do you think some of that, what is allowed, has to do with gender?
No, because I think female sports are a lot of you see a lot of the abuses in female sports. I would say just as many news stories as you see coming up about sports or abuse in male sports, you'll see in female sports. You'll see a lot of things coming out with the Olympics, and um, different issues with equality with soccer and women's soccer. So it happens in both genders. I think sports itself is a different animal.
Do you think that there's a lack of focus on mental health in athletics?
I think it's without question. I don't think it's valued as much, and maybe it's because sports have always been seen as such a release. Or when I'm not feeling well, I go out and I shoot a few hoops. I'm feeling better, and that maybe that activity, that calisthenic of moving your body, being so closely associated with naturally healing yourself, is why it's not valued. I don't know. But clearly, I don't think it's valued. You see it most on the professional levels where it's highlighted, where those guys have a voice in the platform and can really voice whatever the issues are. But the high school guys, the guys that we're worrying about, the youth, they don't have that that kind of reach and that kind of advocacy. And so hopefully, our efforts within the abusive coaching, will shine some light on it.
Yeah, I think about, abusive coaching being on the one spectrum, which in general is like yelling and, utilizing, I would say, not so kind words to motivate you, and
Right.
um lack of boundaries and verbal abuse. I don't know if it gets to the point of physical abuse, but definitely verbal abuse. Uh-oh, what did I do? Verbal abuse. I just lost everything. Um, yeah, so I don't know, this monitor just went off some reason. So anyway. So if y'all see me looking over there, that's because now everything has went on to the other screen. Oh, you gotta love technology, right?
For
So
sure.
verbal abuse being one of those things that I think comes up a lot for people. So what are some takeaways? What, if you wanted to leave some steps for people like me who have that has their child in sports, um, and when you think about, again, this is about men's mental health, what are some things that I should look out for in terms of my athlete?
I would look at how the players respond, to the coach, how the coach engages with them, and to see if it's something that you could detect maybe a pattern of they're familiar with how he's coming, or they're familiar with some kind of, and you'll see it with abuse victims, when when they're flinching or something like that. Similarly, if a player is being abused by his coach, when the coach is coming to engage with him, that player is going to flinch in some way. There'll be a tell.
Mm, that's a good point. Good, definitely something to think about. So, and if that were to happen, right? Say that that is the case, that a player is experiencing that. What are some steps that they can take?
I mean, the player themselves, the youth themselves, they want to talk to an adult. They want to make sure that they share with an adult what's going on, to find out if it's normal, to find out if something that they can work through, or they themselves might be able to navigate through themselves, or if they need an adult to come in and be a third person and help them voice their opinion. But certainly sharing it with someone, you want to make sure that you share it with a trusted adult. It doesn't necessarily have to be someone on the coaching staff. It could be any trusted adult. I think any responsible trusted adult is going to be able to rationalize, what is going on, and be able to step up if that young person needs somebody to help them voice their opinion.
Well, you guys are tuned into the Urban Heat. This is Conversations with Coach La. We are radio with a purpose, impacting the communities that we serve. You guys can actually download the Urban Heat and listen to the Urban Heat on iHeartRadio, or you can go to our website, which is heat981fm.com. And we are talking to Mr. Khari Roulhac, who is the founder of Roulhac Enterprises, about mental health and self-care, and what and how he's been able to navigate the different adversities he's found being a Black man in America. So the last thing I as we get ready to close, I can't believe the hour has gone by so quickly. We got like 15 minutes in this show.
Wow.
What are you reading currently? You know, what are you reading currently to keep sharpening your saw?
Well, I'm most of my time currently is being spent on a project that I'm working on. I haven't been reading anything, and I spoke briefly about the Black Coaches Classic, but that's really been occupying a lot of my time. I've put together a committee for the first time for this project that I'm really excited about. I got a bunch of different uh, community members that I'm excited about, different people involved in sports and in finances and community organizing and Pop Warner Sports and so I'm really excited about the group that I put together and Black Coaches Classic 2024 is what we're planning for. And essentially, the Black Coaches Classic was established in 2020. We inducted um, Frida Harris and Charlie Titus into the Legends Hall of Fame. Um, uh, the COVID came the year after, and so we couldn't have a program. Um, and the year after that, we pivoted to do sort of a virtual program. And of course, our mission, is to promote the increased representation of BIPOC coaches and administrators in senior level positions in sports. And so our program is geared toward promoting coaches and promoting youth engagement. So after the pandemic, when we pivoted to a virtual program, we did a program at Madison Park and we inducted Dennis and Harry Wilson into the Legends Hall of Fame. Um, but after speaking with funders and things of that nature, I learned that I need to expand my programming to really speak to the youth experience and really speak to the community experience or the community engagement experience. And so I built a program. I built out a program that is going to speak to all of those different areas. And so, our youth engagement will not only look like the basketball events, but we'll also have programs for youth where they're learning about the NIL is something that's really powerful now or popular now, or mental health workshops and things of that nature. We hope to have community enrichment arm that will look like maybe civic engagement workshops or sustainability and job readiness opportunities, and then of course our coaches recognition event, which is the basketball invitational, um, where we recognize coaches that have made major contributions to you know basketball in the urban community or sports in the urban community. And so I'm hoping that the trifecta of those events, um, produces a Black Coaches Classic that is worthy of its name. We've only done an invitational in the past, but hopefully expanded to offer programming to the community and to the youth specifically. Um, will help bring forward our mission.
Yeah. I have to I love that you have the legislative side, the mental health side, advocacy side, and then it's very action oriented. So it's not like you're just saying, "Hey, I'm pointing out a problem," but you're also bringing a lot of solutions to one, recognize that not all coaches are abusive, to help those that are abusive with, curriculum. Like,
Right.
it's not just we're gonna punish you or we're gonna shame you, but again, these are learned behaviors. And I don't think often we look at if a coach is being in a particular way, it's probably because that's how he was coached. And
Sure.
that's how he learned to coach. So you have to teach a different way of being to change behavior. So I think that's really awesome. And although you're not a clinician, that is very therapeutic approach to cultivating a change to behavior and naming the behavior and not making the person feel bad. So I think that's awesome. So we've talked about a lot of different things, and I think what I would love to do is just have you share with, what are some takeaways that you want people to sort of know, like some action, like if it was a call to action, what do you want people to know, how to get in contact with you, and what are some steps you want them to take after listening to this particular conversation?
Well, what one thing I encourage people to do all the time is to reflect. You know, reflection is something that seems simple, um, but is essential. You know, in recognizing your own shortcomings and where you might be able to improve. Along the way. So reflection is important. One, to recognize your own shortcomings, but two, also to determine what your next steps are. So I would encourage people to reflect more often.
I
Um,
I agree. Reflection is so important. And I think that's a key component to betting on self is to take that time and reflect on not only the things you want to do better, but what you're doing well.
Accountability is important. It's important. That reflection piece allows you to take accountability, and if you fail to reflect, you'll miss that accountability step, and then you'll be moving wrong, and think you're moving right. Uh,
Yes, accountability is huge. I think that, when you talked about earlier therapy being a mirror, and, one of the things they teach us when we're learning about how to support someone is that the client is the expert of their own experience and they name what the problem is, not me. So I always reflect on, well, what brought you here? What is causing you distress? And what is it that you feel like you want to change? Block out all the noise of what everyone else is saying and kind of think about, well, how am I showing up in the world? And am I happy with what I'm showing up, how I'm showing up? Is there anything about me that I would like to change?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Very important. But where people can reach me, you can find me on Facebook at Roulhac Enterprises Inc. And I believe it's at the bar here,
Mhm.
spelled ROULHAC Enterprises Inc. On Instagram, same name, Roulhac Enterprises Inc. Twitter, same thing, Roulhac Enterprises Inc. From there, you can find all of my projects. Um, Thank you, and I appreciate you having
Yes.
me, and I appreciate your time being here.
Yes, this has been really, really good. Let's take a moment and give some shout outs in this last few minutes. Just want to recognize that people have tuned in. Sharika Alford, Shamina Austin, Ray Royale, my cousin out in Chicago, Social Work Sunday Tea. Thank you all for listening. Everyone who's tuned in through iHeartRadio, YouTube, Facebook, thank you all for listening. As you know, you're tuned into the Urban Heat. We are the radio station with a purpose. We are constantly providing programming and shows that are geared towards uplifting and encouraging people in our community. You can follow us on iHeartRadio. You can also bookmark our website, heat981fm.com. And as you know, tomorrow morning we will have the um, we will have the morning cafe that will be here in the morning, and you know that is going to be a wonderful show with SB John, Moonlight, and Dr. Love, and also DJ Wade. You must make sure you tune in for that 8 o'clock in the morning. That's Monday through Friday, and of course, Pole Therapy is going down on Friday. Conversations with Coach La will be in the building. I also have about 15 poets diverse from different ethnicities, male and female, that are going to come and provide their emotions through spoken word. Want to check that out? It is basically sold out for all seated seats. We do have some general admission tickets still left. So you can find that on Eventbrite. Just search Pole Therapy. And I hope to see you guys in the building for that. And as you know, I'm here every Sunday, 10 p.m. live. And you can catch the replay of the show every Thursday on iHeartRadio. You can catch the replay if you missed the live show on Sundays. Any final words, Mr. Khari?
Love, peace, and hair grease.
I love it. I love it. I love it. I'm so glad that you hung out with me tonight and we had this conversation. It's been a long time. Um, I'm loving that me and you both are doing really well in life, and it's always nice to run into people from high school and you look exactly the same minus the long beard. He didn't have all that hair on his face in high school, y'all. But now he got a long beard, but he didn't have that. But other than that, he looks exactly the same.
you. Likewise. Likewise.
I hope you're able to come back. I really want to continue to support your initiatives. As you know, I'm always resharing your posts and your information because he has great information. If you want the plug to the community, you definitely need to follow his page.
Come
From
on.
job opportunities, training programs, resources, you name it, he posts everything. So it's really a great a resource for the community what he provides. So
Thank you.
all right. Well, once again, y'all need to tune in next week to another episode of Conversations with Coach Law. We're going to see you later. Khari, thank you for an amazing show.
Thank
And
you.
I will talk to you soon and see you on Friday.
I'll be there.
Email for
Be
your
there.
tickets. All right. Good night, everyone. And
Peace.
keep on having dope conversations. Until next time, see you next week.